Greetings and welcome into the Sports Shuffle. I am Flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin just reflecting about how it's nice to have an oasis of sports with all the craziness going on without getting into anything.
Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff this week. I'm sure most of you are aware. Obviously, the anniversary of 9/11 is a somber event every year. Luna getting in the way of the recording. Not unusual, but not one of the things I'm talking about. And of course, some other things that we're not going to go too deeply into at all.
'Cause it's sort of a prime directive that I know I've always tried to have, and I think you've sort of hopped on to.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we will say about it is let's stop the violence, people. Let's be adults and Luna get down. Um, as I throw her, yeah, let's just stop the violence, people. Let's stop before it gets worse.
Yeah.
Anyways,
And I
uh,
kind of like what Pat McAfee said.
I actually haven't seen what he said about
Oh,
anything
okay.
yet, but I'm sure it was something similar to what I just said.
Yeah, basically along those same lines.
I'm sure he says it with a little more flair because he's a little
With
more.
a colorful metaphor or two.
Yeah, he's a little bit more PG-13. Ironically, Pat McAfee technically comes up with my final thoughts today.
Oh, okay.
Different than any of that. But anyways, as Joel was saying before we started, good to have the distraction of sports this week. And we did have the distraction of sports last night with Washington playing Green Bay in a game that was not as close as the final score would indicate.
Yeah, the basic reaction to that was, well, it was a game.
It was a game. Sadly, it was actually a game that could have covered at the very end, even though that looked like it had no shot of being remotely close all night long. The Packers win 27-18. Got to within 7 at one point, and then the Packers blew it back open. Unfortunately for Green Bay, it looks like they have lost Jaden Reed to a shoulder injury for multiple weeks on a touchdown catch that was brought back
Yeah,
via penalty. So a very expensive, costly
for
penalty
anybody out
on
there
that one.
who is going, well, at least Green Bay is mostly healthy right now, but wait, there's more.
If there's one spot in the Green Bay Packers you can afford to lose somebody, it really is the wide receivers because they are just so deep at that position.
Yeah, and you had to definitely hand it to Jordan Love with the offensive line injuries,
Yeah.
handling things pretty nicely against a Commanders team that just seemed to be old and very tired.
Yeah, didn't get to 300 yards in the game, but was about 220 at halftime for yardage. They had this game pretty much under control. A lot of carries for Josh Jacobs, so good news for fantasy owners there. Tucker Kraft, if you had him go against you or for you,
Booyah.
you absolutely know
In
it.
one league, definitely happy when you see those 24 fantasy points. You go, oh, yeah, I know who I had. I don't even have to look, and you're like, yeah, that would be TK.
Yeah, and he was a potential league week winner at the position for a lot of people this week.
Good start at TE or even flex if you decided to get a little crazy.
Yeah, I've got a dynasty league where I've got Tyler Warren, who I just drafted, and Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft was on my bench because, well, Tyler Warren's been very, very good. It's very quickly going to become a problem on which one I need to consider starting each week, especially if Tucker Kraft keeps this up. Hopefully, not a mistake to leave Warren on the bench. But if you had Deebo Samuel, he was about to your expectations. Jaden Daniels wasn't very pretty, but he did get your fantasy results that you were asking for in the about 20-point range in most leagues. It was a decent enough fantasy night. The disappointment still is Terry McLaurin, still working up his reps, still working up his game from the time off due to his hold in, but he was better this week than last week. And that Green Bay defense, they look legitimately like one of
Every
the all-time defenses right now.
every time Jaden Daniels seemed to try to have a chance to try to get back in it, sacked.
Yeah, Micah Parsons wasn't even on the field for about half the snaps, and he's getting sick of that. But he dealing with the back injury, coming over new. He
And
said you
you
can't
see,
keep a dog on the leash forever, essentially. And in the next 10 days before the Packers' next game, you got to think he's going to get in better shape. He's going to get
and
more
then
familiar with that playbook and on the field a lot more.
Did you see the highlight where Parsons joined the post-game show and the Packers crowd were going,
Thank
"Thank you,
you, Jerry.
Jerry."
Oh yeah. Um,
Salt in the wound there.
Packers, Cowboys, Sunday Night Football in Week 4. By the way, so looking forward to that one. Unless you're a Dallas fan, I
The
think the rest of
Micah
us are looking
Parsons
forward to it
revenge game that we will hear
in
nonstop. Oh my
in
goodness.
Dallas. And the thing is, Micah Parsons was like wall to wall in the coverage, but Van Ness was great. Nixon was great in the back end. I mean, there was nobody that had a truly bad game for that defense. It was top to bottom. You had great players doing great things for the Packers defense. They held the one of the best rushing offenses from last season to under 50 yards, or I think it was 51 yards last night. And then the week before, the Lions were another one of the great rushing teams from last year. They held them under 50 yards. They've allowed less than 100 yards rushing in the first two games combined. Um, I think the Dolphins have allowed 100 points or 100 yards rushing since the game against the Colts ended. So the Packers defense legitimately makes this team look like one of the 2 or 3 Super Bowl favorites in the NFL right now.
And as you definitely have heard endlessly, how about the two teams that the Packers have knocked off?
Yeah.
Lions and now the Commanders. And you look at the playoff picture from last year,
Yep.
Packers look legit.
Packers absolutely look legit. Just to remind everybody, the Lions lost to the Commanders in the divisional round. Commanders lost to the Eagle in the NFC Championship. And of course, the Eagles won the whole damn thing. So the Packers look very, very legit. Unfortunately, the end of Austin Eckler's career looks just about as legit as he did tear
The
his Achilles last night.
means JCM, aka Bill
Bill.
Starr, has ascended.
Yeah, it's a very sad way for Austin Eckler to go down because Achilles injuries are next to impossible for running backs to come
And
back from
or
anyways,
cornerbacks,
let
ask
alone
Aaron
one.
Rodgers.
Well, Aaron Rodgers looks good. Kirk Cousins looked okay. I think he would look better now. You've seen quarterbacks, you've seen other positions come back from an Achilles issue. The running backs, though, you get a flash or two. I think Cam Akers had a moment or two. Dobbins hasn't looked terrible. He had an Achilles a few years ago. It's typically a running back death sentence. And when you're pushing 30 and you're already at that age cliff, and he didn't look particularly fast or like Austin Eckler were used to last night, anyways. I fear this is not only the end of his season, which it absolutely is, but possibly the end of his career
Major bummer.
as a whole. And if it is a great career for Austin Eckler, hopefully for him, he seems like the kind of guy who's going to work his butt off to come back and try and recover from this thing and come back and play again. I don't think we're ever going to see prime Austin Eckler or anything near it from him if he does come back, but best wishes to him. And if it is the end, it's a great career for an undrafted running back that has the potential at the Hall of Fame.
And for the Commanders, you have Raiders and Falcons. So can they fix their woes and right the ship?
Yeah, Raiders look like they might be a little bit better than we expected, or maybe the Patriots, like I've been saying. I know they're a big hype team, but I said I think they're still a year away. Maybe they're a year away. We won't find out much this week because they're playing Miami. So if they win that game, I think we go, well, they beat Miami, who looks terrible. If they lose to Miami, I think everybody goes, okay, the Patriots are not ready for prime time. The Falcons, I took them to beat the Bucs. They fought very hard against the Bucs last week. Washington beat the Giants, so I think that's going to be the next hardest team they play in the first 4 weeks is the Falcons. So we'll have to see how they do. And of course, the Packers with Dallas in a couple of weeks. They look like a team that they might not be losing anytime soon.
Yeah, and if you're wondering if Thursday Night Football gets any better, yeah, next week your fish go to Orchard Park. Who knew?
The adult beverages will be flowing for me to get through that one without throwing up, I think.
That's going to be brutal.
I mean, the Bills have the Dolphins number as it is. Josh Allen, I saw an AI video of them after the game, like Allen and Lamar Jackson, clap hands and hug, and then it morphs into Josh Allen feeding Lamar Jackson a bottle because he is his daddy. 100% true of Josh Allen and the Miami Dolphins. So I don't expect that to go well. I kind of wish that was a 1 p.m. start I could ignore. Yeah, next week on prime time, it's it sounds better than it's going to be, I think, for the matchup. But Miami and Buffalo next Thursday night.
So, we already covered Austin Eckler, the specific injuries from the game. I know Brock Purdy has definitely been ruled out. George
That
Kittle.
is actually not true.
Oh,
There
okay.
was news 40 minutes ago that came out. Brock Purdy has
Ooh,
not been ruled out for
ooh,
Sunday's
okay.
game in New Orleans. Mac Jones will start at quarterback, though. It could be one of those where Brock Purdy is the emergency third string kind of quarterback, only going to play if, basically hell freezes over and things go bad. But yeah, 40 minutes ago, via
Ooh,
the
okay.
Sleeper Act, per Adam Schefter, he has not been ruled out.
But
He
he's
is
not
not going
starting.
to start. He was expected to be out 2 to 5 weeks, so it makes sense that he wouldn't start. But being a toe injury, it's probably something that if you play it, it just extends how long it's going to be a problem for longer. But if you're going to be the emergency backup, if something happens, you at least have him available.
And we've seen it happen at least once in recent memory, where all of a sudden you're all like on the third or fourth string quarterback. You're going, okay, is one of the assistants going to come in now? Sort of like a position player in baseball,
Yeah.
position player pitching.
So let's get some news on injuries in general. Brock Bowers did not practice Friday. Of course, they have the Monday night game against the Chargers. They are the late Monday night game, the 10 p.m. Monday night game. So
That's going to be a long Monday night.
it is. And if you have Brock Bowers, you're going to have to make your decision likely before Monday whether you're going to start him or you're going to play someone else. He may start. Obviously, with them playing Monday, they have one more day before they have to kind of make their decision on what he is, whether it's questionable, doubtful, or out. So you can give it another day, but you might not have clarity on that until we get to Monday Night Football. And at that point, it's probably too late. Again, we talked about Brock Purdy not being ruled out but will not start. Josh Reynolds, Dallas Goedert, both out. Keyshawn Butte, who was fantastic week number 1, he looks like he's good to go.
And so he
Isaiah
decided
Like,
to bet on his team in college.
well, he's back to playing at least. Isaiah Likely is out as well. Xavier Worthy with that shoulder injury, no surprises, listed as doubtful, not out, which I think that might be the surprise, but unlikely to play. In some positive news for the Falcons, Drake London, who left the game briefly at the end with a shoulder injury,
And Mooney
and Darnell
both are
Mooney,
good to go.
both going to be able to play. Darren Waller, still out for Miami. He's not going to play this season, I don't think. And
Sort of
that's
like
the
when you're
big
going, is there
news.
any good news for the Dolphins?
The good news is they play the Patriots this week, and Tua has never lost to New England. That's the good news that we'll have to see if it pans out. So,
As I'm sure you've heard the Tua turn the ball over nickname.
yeah, it's almost bad enough where I want to get a custom jersey, and with that on the back of it, I do know the Dolphins. I don't know if you've seen the rivalry jerseys for the NFC West and the AFC East teams this year,
Yeah,
Joel.
I think I saw one or two of them. Definitely different.
The Dolphins one, the black main color with the teal or the aqua, the dark blue edging, and the orange. I've got a couple of those on the way. Not one of them being Tua, by the way. I think I got a Waddle and an H-Hand coming. Mostly because the Chop Robinson one, they had limited sizes.
If you're ordering a Hill one, does that mean it's going to sit on the sideline and have outbursts?
I had the option to get a Hill one and chose not to. I don't think he's with the team much longer. I know
Yeah,
he was subject to trade rumors. Like
yeah,
apparently
yeah.
teams have been calling.
Yeah, I saw there was a video with Rich Eisen and Mike Florio, take of that what you will, where the Steelers were suggested as landing spot. Kind of trying to figure out how that works when you already have DK and Pickens there.
Well, Pickens isn't there anymore. Remember, Pickens
Oh
is
yeah,
now
that's right.
in
That's right.
Dallas,
Yeah, he's in
and they
Dallas.
don't really have a number 2,
Yeah.
so it could be an
Well,
interesting fit for
yeah,
Pittsburgh.
I guess Steelers really needs to have a diva quarterback, as my firmware needs to be updated today. They sort of need when they don't haven't had a diva quarterback in there lately, and of course the other destination that was suggested was back to the Chiefs. Not crazy.
Back to the Chiefs with the suspension of Rice, the injury to Worthy. It doesn't look like Worthy's going to be out very, very long. Probably another week or so after this one's the tops. He will be hurt all season long. He'll get a surgery in the offseason, but the dislocation is something you can play through with a brace. He might get hurt again. Only time will tell. I've heard rumors of teams like San Francisco as well being interested. We'll
Oh yeah,
see.
they need a lot of help. All of a sudden, you turn around, it's like, how did you all get injured again?
Again. But only time will tell. I think the Dolphins, especially if they lose this week to the Patriots, play the Bills next week, which is almost certainly going to be a loss just because they do not beat Buffalo. New England beat Buffalo, I think, 33 out of 38 times with Tom Brady, and Josh Allen has the same level of success as that against Miami. I think Miami at best can start 1-2, and at that point, maybe you're not immediately sellers. But if you lose to New England, you've got Buffalo week 3.
And the more,
You've
and the more,
got the Jets where they're wearing those black jerseys in week 4 on Monday Night Football. And then in week 5, you've got Carolina. If you don't win a game before week 5, you need to be selling Tyreek Hill for sure.
and the more that I think about Pittsburgh, that no longer has George Pickens, of course, the more that I think about it, yeah, the other places seem to be the better landing spot since Tomlin pretty much rode Pickens out of town and Pickens was definitely not on the same level, I think, as a diva as Tyreek is. I think Tyreek is double or triple Pickens.
Yeah, an interesting place that I'm looking at now would be Las Vegas. I don't know if there's any possibility that's happening, but you've got Jacoby Myers saying he wanted out of town. Of course, they tried to get Amari Cooper, Dante Thornton.
Mari Cooper said, "Nah, I'm gonna retire. See ya."
Yeah, Myers and Thornton are what they've got there. Maybe they can flip Myers back to Miami so they don't have to pay as much in draft capital. I don't know. There's some teams. Arizona would be interesting.
Remember
Um,
all of that, and everything started with the whole when Carr was there and Devontae Adams was being traded so he could be with Carr, and then yoink, nope.
yeah. Yeah, Las Vegas, I think, is on a good track, but I do think they're a little short on the talent ride for right now. But yeah, Tyreek needs to go. He
How
needed to go for a couple of years, honestly.
as
Um,
as as the
he's
memes
got to
go, how soon until the Raiders sign that new quarterback you've never heard of before, Tim Brody with the mustache?
go. They won't do that. Anyways, let's go to the rest of week number 2. Joel
And
and I
we
are,
go to Sunday early slate.
yep. Joel and I are both starting the week off 1-0 with taking Green Bay, so the hot start continues. And I think we're going to have a pretty easy time picking this first one. It's Cleveland. It's Baltimore. Still waiting to find out what happens with rookie running back Quidshawn Judkins.
Yeah,
He
there
did go
seems to be
to
some rumblings that may be a major suspension. Some people tend to think not.
uh, time will tell, but he went and talked to the NFL offices on Wednesday, which was an interesting day because that would have been his first day available for practice since he signed his contract late in the last week. Was in the New York
We're talking about
offices.
practice.
Yep, he was in the New
You have
York
to get that in there
offices
once.
talking. Yeah, I know. Talking to the NFL about what happened. We'll see about a long term, short term, or any suspension whatsoever. Of course, the charges in that case were dropped. I do know in the state of Florida, if there's an accusation, there's an arrest. So it could be one of those things to go, no, this was completely made up. You're free to go. And the NFL could say, hey, someone made something up. It could also be one of those, hey, we didn't have the evidence to prosecute you. And the NFL goes, well, you were still accused of something. And we couldn't prove you didn't do it. So you are suspended. I do know, like I said, in the state of Florida, we live in Florida, so I know some of the laws here. If there's an accusation of domestic violence, there's going to be an arrest just so the person doesn't go home and murder the other person, typically is what they're worried about. So, again, stop the violence, everybody. But that is, it'll be an interesting way to see what the NFL decides on that one. However, back to this game, I think Tillman and Judy, Njoku, Fannin are all in consideration from the Browns, and Dylan Sampson's a very interesting flex play. Do not play Jerome Ford. He is old. He is washed. He is slow. If Judkins plays, Ford is a complete drop. He's going to be the running back 3 on this team. If not, he might have one more week of absolute depth, desperation value. I don't think Flacco's a good play. For Baltimore, you're going to start King Henry because you'd be a fool not to start the best running back through 1 week in fantasy football right now. You're going to play Lamar Jackson. He's just going to be too good to stop. Zay Flowers had a very good week number one. I think you fire him up if you've got him. And then at tight end, I think you can still play Mark Andrews. He was bad week one. He might not be good. He could be completely fried. But no Isaiah Likely. They're going to have to throw the ball at least a little bit. And if you're going to take a dart throw, you'd rather take it at the tight end position with Mark Andrews than at the wide receiver with like a Rashad Bateman or a DeAndre Hopkins. All of that being said, Cleveland is a heavy underdog in this one. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, I know the Browns put up a fight in their week one loss, but Ravens are just going to be on a mission to redeem themselves. It's hard to pick against the flock there
11
at
and a half
home.
point favorites. 11 and a half point favorites. The biggest one of the year so far.
At home, I'm going Ravens, and I'm not even blinking or thinking.
Just out of curiosity, would you take the Ravens with the points?
How much was the spread?
It's right now 11 and a half. So I think that's the more interesting question because I'm on the Ravens as well, straight up.
I think yes, just because Lamar wants to absolutely dominate after getting absolutely smoked on Sunday Night Football last week. So, like I said, they're looking to redeem themselves, and that means not winning by just a little bit. That means freaking stomping them.
Yeah, I'm taking them with the points as well. I'm taking Baltimore straight up. There's just too much talent.
You know,
Baltimore is, if you say there are 4 teams right now that are most likely to win the Super Bowl, I think you look at Philly, Green Bay, Buffalo, Baltimore, with Kansas City being right there as well, just because you can't rule them out. So
Lamar
I
in that
think they're going
locker
to beat a top 5 projecting pick team in Cleveland.
Lamar and that locker room are pissed.
Yeah, they most blown leads under Harbaugh in the NFL in the
And
last few years.
if you're a fan, don't try to pet Lamar Jackson's helmet or D Hop's. Don't be an idiot.
If you are a sports fan, you should not be interacting with the players while they are on the field in game action. I think that's the way it is. Like in college, you can get on the field or the court after the game if you pull off an upset kind of thing. You can interact with the players that way. Or if they're in like a charity event or a practice or something, but pre-game, post-game, sure, thank you, Jerry kind of deal. But not during the game. Not a good look for Buffalo. Buffalo's got – see, this is my issue with Buffalo fans. They're very, very passionate, but you have a few that are very, very stupid that do stuff like that and makes them look bad. Anyways, next up, Jacksonville at Cincinnati. Both teams are 1-0. Cincinnati is a 3.5 point favorite over the Jaguars, and their offense didn't look great in week one. Part of that is going to be the Cleveland defense being pretty good. The Cleveland offense having a slow as steady as fast, or slow as smooth, moves as fast kind of pace on that game just to grind that game to a halt. Jacksonville's defense not on the same level. And I think this is where you see the Cincinnati offense is going to be better than last week. They always start off slow, but I think this is going to be a step in the right direction. Obviously, you're going to play Burrow. You're going to play Chase. You're going to play Higgins. You're going to play Chase Brown. For the
Even
Jaguars,
if they let you down in week number uno.
Those are people you drafted to play. Wide receivers are always going to be inconsistent. They're going to have a down game or two every year, even if you are the Jamar Chase, the Justin Jefferson, the CeeDee Lamb. It's going to happen. You don't bench those guys for any other reason than injury and bye weeks, really. But it could still be a slow week. They do start slow. It's week 2. We'll see. For Jacksonville, Travis Etienne has become an absolute must start. He was one of the top running backs. I think he was the running back 3 in week number 1. He looked fantastic against Carolina, albeit Carolina's terrible defense. But Cincinnati's defense, I think, overachieved last week. I think we're going to see them regress closer to what we expected this week. I think Etienne's a good play. Obviously, no Tank Bigsby in the mix should give him a little more opportunity. Should also have Bashal Tutin come up and play a little bit more as well. You're going to play Brian Robinson Jr., Travis Hunter as a flex consideration, and Brenton Strange as a tight end dart throw. He was decent in week number 1, didn't get the touchdown, went to another tight end, but could have been a very big game for Brenton Strange. And the Bengals not great against the tight end. We saw Fannin and Njoku have decent games last week. So keep that name in mind if you are someone who lost George Kittle, for example. Anyways, the Bengals are a 3.5-point home favorite. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, as both Jags and Bengals have high-powered offenses easily, but have to go with the Bengals. Just I know they're smarting a little bit, especially fantasy owners. If you had any Bengals assets in Week 1, you're sort of scratching your head a little bit. But yeah, Bengals by far and above are the one that I have to say is easily the pick. I know you're going to have some people who make the case for the Jaguars, but got to go with the Bengals to bounce back.
Yeah, if you had Bengals in week 1 in your fantasy lineup, there's a good chance you lost, especially if you had that Burrow Chase or Burrow Higgins stack. But I think it's going to be better. I'm going to take the Bengals to win this game. It could be a nice, like, 31-28 style game. I don't think defense is going to be good for either side. I think you're going to see the offenses ramp it up. And I think the Bengals are going to give you what you were hoping for when you drafted them in fantasy this week. And expect Brian Thomas Jr. to be much better as well. Moving on to, I think, one of the sneaky, interesting games of the week. It is Dallas, a 6.5-point favorite over the New York Giants. The Giants looked, well, let's be honest, they looked bad. Russell Wilson looked like he was completely lost behind the bad offensive line for the Giants.
Russ
They
didn't
couldn't
do
get the
too
ground
much
game
cooking.
going. Who did? Honestly, other than Malik Neighbors, 5 for 71, who had a good game for the Giants? Nobody on offense, nobody on defense, really. Dallas,
Anyone?
though, looked pretty
Anyone?
good against Philadelphia. Yeah, Bueller. Dallas looked pretty good against Philadelphia. They were badly missing a great pass rusher. If only they had one of those around. But the offense looked pretty good. CeeDee Lamb with the drops. He was caught with the drugs machine the day after. He said, I didn't mean for that to go viral, but it did. For the Giants, if you're starting anybody besides Malik Neighbors and maybe Wan'Dale Robinson in extremely deep leagues, you're doing yourself a disservice. I wouldn't start Tracy. I wouldn't start Scatabo. Definitely not starting Russell Wilson. It's really Neighbors and maybe. I mean, you're looking 14 to 16 team leagues or dynasty leagues if you're deep for Wan'Dale Robinson. He's not a start in most situations. For Dallas, Javonte Williams. Left for dead in the drafts. I think he's got to be put at least in your flex after what he did week 1 against a very good Eagles run defense, albeit without Jalen Carter. You're going to still stick with CeeDee Lamb. I think George Pickens is going to have a much better day against a lesser defense in the Giants. The Giants defense is not bad, but it's not Philadelphia levels good. And Ferguson as a tight end option is at least in play. I do know I've dropped him for Juwan Johnson in a few places and Hunter Henry in other places. So not a much play by any stretch of the imagination. Again, a 6.5-point favorite is Dallas. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, Johnson Cowboys definitely favored for Cowboys for Survivor. I'm kind of going in a crazier, different direction. I'll get to my Survivor pick when we get to the game. I know the Cowboys aren't one of those major picks this week. They definitely look decent in the Spitgate loss. But yeah, I think the Giants tend to get really stomped. Cowboys get to be dominant, get back on the win bus. And I think we are 1 week closer to seeing Jackson Dart in the Big Apple.
Yeah.
Cowboys.
Unfortunately for Jackson Dart, I think this week is probably the best opportunity for him to get that first start because Dallas looks like one of the weaker potential defenses with no pass rush. And he's not going to get that opportunity. For me, if I was going Survivor pool, I think it would be Detroit over Chicago, Dallas over the Giants, or San Francisco. I'd feel a lot better with San Francisco if it wasn't Mac Jones, though. But I can't. Well, Arizona against Carolina seemed like a good one as well. But I can't fault anybody for looking at Dallas in that way. I'm also taking Dallas in this one. I just don't believe that offense is going to get going for the Giants well enough. We could see a little bit of Jackson Dart in this one. Who knows? But I think Dallas wins this. They cover the spread as well. Next up, we have Detroit and Chicago. Detroit is a 5.5-point home favorite. And they looked really soft on offense last week against that Packers defense. But with the new evidence of the Thursday Night Football game, I think we can safely say the Packers defense had more to do with that than the offense itself. So I know there's a lot of people concerned with the Detroit offense, with the new coordinator. The return of Ben Johnson for the Bears head coach coming back to Detroit this week. I don't think it's that bad of an offense. I think Green Bay just much better defense, and you couldn't game plan against them the way you normally would because it was week one. You didn't know what this team looked like. So for Detroit, you're going to play Gibbs, you're going to play Montgomery, you're going to play St. Brown, you're going to play Jameson Williams, you're going to play Laporta. If you have any of those guys, you got them to
Jameson
play them.
Williams just had a nice new contract. Ka-ching.
Nice new contract. He was heavily involved, just didn't get a lot going on. For the Bears, I don't think you have a lot of guys you want to start outside of DJ Moore. I don't think you want to start either of the tight ends. I don't think you want to start maybe Roma Dunze is an option. DeAndre Swift is an option, but Detroit's got a very good run defense, so it might not be the best start for DeAndre Swift, but you probably draft him in a place where you are at least going to have to consider him. Again, Detroit is a 5.5-point home favorite with their home opener, and they've got a little bit of a taste to get out of their mouth this week. Joel, do they take care of business against the Bears? Both teams own one.
I think they do because Lions are like the Ravens. They have some frustrations to take out on another team, and I think they do so quite big time on the Bears. As Ben Johnson sort of gets his second loss of the year. Not exactly off to a great start. But yeah, I think slowly some of that lion mojo that we're used to seeing comes back. And the Bears, yeah, they leave with more questions than answers.
Yeah, I think the Bears can cover in this game, but I don't think they win it outright. I'm going to take the Lions. I said
They
I thought they
ain't,
were going to be
they
a
ain't
good
going into
surprise
Ford
pick.
Field and winning. They ain't. Sorry.
No, and Jared Goff last year had some turnover problems in this game at home against the Bears. That was on Thanksgiving. The Bears still lost, and that was that abysmal time management game at the end of the game.
Time out. Time out.
Yeah,
Time out.
Matt
Time
Eberflus
out.
Matt Eberflus lost his job there, whether or not he was fired at the moment or not. But I think the Lions get it done. I think they're just too much more talented than the Bears, and we'll move on.
They are who we thought they were.
Yeah, and Detroit is not going to let them off the hook. Next up, Miami hosting the Patriots as a 1.5-point home favorite after getting absolutely bodied by the Indianapolis Colts.
Obliterated, decimated, stomped into oblivion,
Miami
and recovered
arguably
it.
Miami arguably looked like the worst team in football last week. It could just be a
Sent
hey, we
into
weren't
another
ready.
dimension.
Yeah, we weren't ready to play last
Sent
week.
to the shadow realm. There we go.
Yeah. Indianapolis could be a better team than we're expecting. There are reasons that you could believe Miami will turn it around. As a Dolphins fan, it's a little hard to see those reasons because you're blinded by the pain. But New England, I don't know if there's a fantasy starter you're really excited about. Trevion Henderson will get more carries as time goes on, but he might not quite be ready for that role yet. If he gets the opportunity, he's the guy you're going to want to start. Keyshawn Butte was very good last week, and Hunter Henry has a dart throw at the tight end position. Tyler Warren ate the Dolphins alive. Remember Brock Bauer last season ate the Dolphins alive at tight end. They're weak against tight end, so Hunter Henry could be a very good play. For the Dolphins, you're going to play Achane. You are probably in a position where you have to play Tyreek Hill if you drafted him. Waddle's in that flex consideration. I don't think you want much else on this team. Not a big game for fantasy numbers, I don't think. Not many options, but the Dolphins are a 1.5-point home favorite against the Patriots. Again, Tua has never lost to the Patriots. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, because I'll tell you, Flyin, on paper, keyword on paper, or words, the Dolphins look like the better team. You tend to look at the Patriots and trying to make the historical case, well, they're going to a warmer climate. It's a road trip. Dolphins are at home. They've got the home crowd. But yeah, then you have back to life, back to reality, back to the here and now as the song goes in. It's just hard back in the Dolphins. Yeah, I know, because you can make the case that maybe this is the week that they can bounce back, but not until they get the jitters, the whatever they have that's just making them have the yips and everything here and there. That Dolphins are just an absolute bleep show. And until they can get that sorted out and back to the high flying offense that we know that they can be because we've seen them. We've seen them with the incredible 70 points. Remember that? What that just seems
Oh, God.
so long ago, like in another lifetime. But yeah, waiting for the Dolphins to move on from Hill. You have the doomsday clock for Mike McDaniel. And, oh, did you see that he has asked about Tua's turnovers, and his response was something along the lines, "Yeah, we got to work on that."
Yeah.
Huh?
I don't know what else you're going to tell the media, but you're
Yeah,
taking the Patriots.
I'm picking the Patriots. This game is just going to be painful to get through. You will definitely. I won't be pulling for you during the early slate.
I'm taking New England. Again, Miami looked like the worst team in football. New England at least looks semi-competent. They've got a lot of young players. They've got a new head coach, a new scheme. That defense is still very, very
Miami
good,
has a football team, the lamest in the land.
pretty much. And until I see something in Miami that makes me think this team is going to turn it around, week one made me an absolute believer in all the hype that the Dolphins were going to be complete garbage. And I tried to go to bat and say, look, I don't understand it. I saw enough in that game to go,
Oh,
no, I was wrong. I get it
speak,
now.
speaking of highlights, you had somebody asking Tyreek Hill why he was contained to the amount of yards that he got, and basically they were asking him what's going on, and he started off with something along the lines of "I don't know," and then he was like trying to get motivated. It's gonna come this week.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see it
Um,
when we believe it.
It's one of those things I got to see it to believe it. Until then, I'm probably not going to be picking Miami for a little while. Again, I mentioned their upcoming schedule is not necessarily. I know next week against Buffalo is absolutely brutal, but it doesn't get a whole lot better from there. New England at least look competent. I think the Raiders are a better team than Miami right now, and they stuck with them toe to toe. I take New England, and New England's getting a point. If you're interested in betting, this seems like a good one to take the money line on, for my money at least. So we're both in agreement. I remember this week's picks when I was doing them on ESPN, the Grossi Posse ESPN page for them. Did pretty well last week. A lot of similar picks. There wasn't a whole lot of variance, and so far Joel and I are falling into that as
Yeah,
well.
because like these games, you're just sort of like, huh?
Yeah, there's a few down the line that we might have some interesting picks. Obviously, we have Philly and Kansas City coming up in a little bit. That one will be interesting to talk about. But next up is San Francisco at New Orleans. The Saints look surprisingly decent against Arizona. Kyler Murray was sick.
Remember that part right there. Saints surprisingly decent. We now
Yeah,
continue.
they looked surprisingly decent, even though their jerseys wanted me to stab my eyes out with rusty spoons because those things were awful. I'm sorry. It looked like someone took the regular white Saints jerseys, peed on them, baked the color in, and said, "Go out and play in these." Saints, you've got a great color scheme with the black with the gold. Don't make a piss yellow jersey. You're not the Nashville Predators in the early 2000s that have the skulls, the alternate.
Somebody out there in
Yeah.
marketing was like, "Hey, how about this as an idea? People are gonna buy it, you
If you
know."
would have made it the Saints gold, it would have been fine. Not this weird urine yellow.
Orders were made for them.
Yeah.
I'll bet you.
Still not as bad as the Steelers jerseys, though, that we already
Oh
talked
yeah,
about.
those are
Um, yeah.
those in week 8, I think, right, against the
Week
Packers.
8 against the Packers. I
Yeah.
think some of the better alternate ones, the Dolphins won, the black jersey that came out, the Niners won in that series, the rivalry jerseys for Buffalo looks really, really good. And then there's some misses like the Saints last week. But anyways, they look good in the game
That's when you
against
know a
Arizona.
team is bad is when you're doing jersey talk.
Well, I'm a jersey person as it is. I mean, I'm wearing a Green Bay Packers Rodgers alternate from when we went to Green Bay a few years ago. In fact, it's the one I'm wearing in the picture right up there. You can tell the yellow 12.
Do you have the Rogers Darkness Retreat one? I don't know if he had a Darkness Retreat one.
No, I think if anything, that's the Pittsburgh Blacks right now. Anyways, San Francisco will be Mac Jones starting, but the Saints are still bad. They are only a 4.5 point favorite. San Francisco is going on the road to New Orleans. Arizona did get a win last week going on the road, but it was
Barely.
dang close at the very end. A goal line stand in the last few seconds of time run out is what decided this game. I wouldn't say the Saints look great, but San Francisco with all their injuries, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, you're going to start him because he's Christian freaking McCaffrey. If you don't start him, what are you doing in fantasy?
Is that his middle
If
name?
he is healthy,
Is that his middle name? Frickin'?
Yeah, if he is healthy and you don't start him, you need to stop playing fantasy football. That's just how it is.
Is that
Alvin
like
Kamara for the Saints is going to be
is
in your
that
lineup as
like,
well.
oh yeah, I picked Jamar Chase and I'm gonna bench him this week.
Yeah, do I play Jamar Chase or Juju Smith Schuster with the Worthy injury? You need to stop playing fantasy football because you ask dumb questions. Um, but yeah, for the Niners, I don't know where else you go for fantasy
Yeah,
outside of Christian McCaffrey,
they're
Ricky
like the
Pearsall.
mythic rare of a magic card of fantasy football, pretty much.
Yes, fantasy dumbass. It's got the foil background and everything. But other than that, Ricky Pearsall for the 49ers is about all I can think of for playing. If you're in like a really weird league, maybe a Tonjes, maybe even a Mac Jones in the spot start. But I think you stick to Pearsall and you stick to McCaffrey. For the Saints, you're going to play Kamara. Juwan Johnson, tight end. Looks like he's going to be a very good weapon for this team. He's going to have to be. Um,
If you're
he's definitely in your
if you're
lineup.
in a 36 team league, Raheed Shaheed.
Yeah, Shaheed and Olave could be options in deeper leagues, but it's hard to believe in anything on this passing game until we see Spencer Rattler really look great. He looked better than expected. And he still didn't look great last week. But again, Juwan Johnson and Kamara is probably about it. Maybe not a lot of good fantasy options in this one at all. San Francisco 1-0 with a lot of injuries. New Orleans 0-1 is a 4.5-point home dog. Who do you got?
Who do I have? Well, as you might have pose a interesting question there, interessante, as Bugs Bunny would say. I refer the jury to your quote about New Orleans was not as bad last week and how close it was that Arizona had a loss. And for that reason alone, and then, of course, the second reason being Mac Jones starting and George Kittle injury and just the 49ers with the injury bug. Call me absolutely all crazy, but I'm picking the Saints and I'm also picking them for Survivor. That's right.
Whoa.
CMC cannot do it all. Saints look halfway decent last week. It could have been a win in an alternate parallel universe somewhere. I don't know how far you would have had to go, but I'm sure there's one out there. And Saints are my holy crap, is he crazy Survivor pick and pick of the week. You might even call that a bold production.
I would say that's very bold. I'm taking San Francisco because I think Christian McCaffrey can do enough to win this game. If Mac Jones is smart, and he was a guy that Kyle Shanahan wanted from the draft. We've heard a lot of that since this news came out that he's going to be the starter. He went to San Francisco in the offseason. He was fine for Jacksonville. In fact, he was good at times for Jacksonville last year in relief of Trevor Lawrence. I think New Orleans overachieved week number one. I think Arizona with a softer defense and a very sick Kyler Murray, who was erupting from both ends, to put it as nicely as I can, at 4:30 on game day morning. Um, I think they're going to get a better effort than they got last week from Arizona, and I think San Francisco wins this. And unfortunately, I think that means you're out of your survivor pool. Not a pick I would make, but you know what? If there's going to be a lot of people on the other end of things picking San Francisco, it could be one of those. Oh wow, Joel is a absolute genius, but only time will tell.
How's that for contrarian?
That is contrarian, and you do have a game to make up early, so that right now would do it if you got that win. As we go to the next game, Buffalo at the New York Jets. The Jets are 7.5-point home underdogs to the Bills. The Bills arguably look like the best team in football, not named Green Bay, in week number one. Keon Coleman, I think, has earned another start in your lineup after he was great last week. James Cook, Josh Allen, of course, in your lineups. Kincaid, Shakir, more depth options at the position of tight end and your flex. For the Jets, Breece Hall, another guy who was left for dead in drafts where he was supposed to go. He just sat there and sat there and sat there. He looked great in week number one. Whether that's a bad Pittsburgh defense or not, we did just see Derrick Henry absolutely obliterate the Bills' running defense. So could be a good spot for him. Justin Fields could be a good streaming option at quarterback. And, of course, Garrett Wilson, the tight end. He gets pretty much every target he possibly can. He's got to be in your lineup as well. Big home underdogs for the Jets, even though they look pretty good in week number one. Who you got?
Yeah, because the Jets definitely put up a fight against the Steelers, but Bills are an entirely different team altogether. I think Josh Allen does it again with this bunch of no names that keep setting those records. And I think that the Bills roll on with yet another win. As Bills are even better than the Steelers by far.
I agree. I do think the Jets cover. I think they can lose by 7, but I do think the Bills win this. I think it's gonna be similar to last night's game, where it's like this game's never really in doubt, but it gets a little close on the scoreboard at the end. But the Buffalo Bills are just too good.
Yeah,
They beat down this division like crazy, and that's not going to change this weekend.
Buffalo just has this talent of like you think you're getting close and yoink.
Yeah, if they can come back from 15 down in the last 4 minutes against Baltimore, I'm pretty sure there's nothing the Jets can throw at them that they can't come back from. Again, I think the Jets might be a better team than we expect, and they might very easily start 0-2 and be one of the teams you look at and go, they're not that bad looking on the field.
Speaking of the Steelers.
Yeah, speaking of the Steelers, they are going to host the Seattle Seahawks, the DK Metcalf revenge game. They are 3.5-point home favorites. And obviously going to play Metcalf. You're going to probably want to play Jaylen Warren, who was a pretty decent running back play last week. For the Seahawks, I think it's Charbonnet in the backfield. You want of the two, if any of them. But Ken Walker, you've probably drafted him. You've probably got stuck with him at this point. And then JSN, Jackson Smith and Najigba with over 50% target share in week number 1. He's another one. If you bench him after that, you're bad at fantasy. You get your mythic rare dumbass card out because that's something you've earned if you bench him this week. That Pittsburgh defense did not look very good. So
I activate my trap card. You are a dumbass.
I trapped myself. Damn it. Yeah. Pittsburgh, though, looked very good offensively in week 1. The defense, not so much. You got to think they're going to look better at some point just because they have too much good talent on that team. Seattle, Sam Darnold, starting 0-1. Tough loss to the Niners last week. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Steelers definitely looked amazing last week. All of a sudden, you're going, okay, maybe there's something to this whole Rodgers thing. Steelers offense looking more like the Steelers offense of old. Last week, if you started Rodgers, you were probably pretty happy in fantasy. And I think with these two teams, it's not so much the question of the Steelers, but it's the question of who do the Seahawks actually have? As you know, they just had the mass exodus with the free agency, and they just sort of got absolutely cleaned out. And got to go to the Steelers, and you're asking the questions: is Rodgers good? And who knows? But I think at least he can be for week number dose.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody last week was Angry Rodgers, and Angry Rodgers is a very scary, scary man with his revenge game against the Jets, which most of the times you hear a revenge game, you're like, oh, cool, haha, he's going back to his old team. No, this was a screw you, New York Jets. I am going to come into town and whoop on you kind of game for Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know if he's going to be 4 touchdowns good against the Seahawks, but I think he will be playable. I know, especially in super flex leagues, you got him. I think he's going to be a good play. I'm taking Pittsburgh. I'm taking it to cover that 4-point spread as well. I don't believe in Sam Darnold as a full-time permanent starter. I think he got a big boost from playing with the Vikings with not only the coaching staff and those great players, but just the opportunity around him with everything falling apart. I don't think he's as good as he looked like in Minnesota. I think Seattle's going to have a really, really bad case of buyer's remorse and seller's regret with the whole getting Sam Darnold and giving up Geno Smith. But I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers to go to 2-0. And
Steelers going to go to the Super Bowl, maybe not.
They're going to say it, but I don't think so. Fantasy question though for you: who would you start if you had to make the option between Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers in week number 2? Fields against Buffalo, Rodgers against Seattle.
I think I would go Rodgers against Seattle because you have to question if Fields is going to be shut down by Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm actually in a position where I have to make that decision. I'm going the opposite way. I actually picked up Rodgers, saw Fields was dropped, and then added Fields just because I want the running upside. And again, I don't think he's going to be quite as angry against Seattle as he was last week. I think DK Metcalf. you might want to play him. He's very, very good. Next up, and we continue to pretty much agree on everything. The Los Angeles Rams go to Tennessee to play the Titans. They are 5.5-point favorites in this one. For the Rams, you're absolutely playing Kyren and Puka Nacua. If you don't play those, good luck to you in your matchup. That's not the right way to go. Devontae Adams should be in your lineup as well. For the Titans, I think it's just Tony Pollard at this point. Everybody else, like Aya Manor, Ridley, maybe they're in deep
If he can get
consideration.
freaking open.
Or catch the damn ball, because Ridley dropped it quite a few times. Cam Ward, I think, is the real deal at quarterback, but for fantasy, he's not in consideration as of yet. I think the Titans will be a good team down the line. I think they're going to go through some growing pains. The defense of the Rams is one of the hot ads this week if they weren't already drafted. Most leagues only draft what you need to, 10, 12 teams, depending on your league size. So they were available in a lot of places. So they could be a good play as well against Tennessee. Tennessee, though, first home game with Cam Ward. They are a 5.5-point dog. Do you believe in the Titans?
Yeah, I don't think there are too many people out there that do believe in the Titans. I've got to go like that very old, super corny fight song, and I've got to ram it. So, yeah, we're picking the Rams. The Titans are trying to figure out their new weapon, Cam Ward. Like I said, Calvin Ridley. Just slightly start to a very disappointing 2025 fantasy campaign. And I'm going, maybe I shouldn't have bought into all the hype and not drafted him again. But just looking at some of the other options and bye weeks and all that other consideration. But yeah, I'm definitely picking the Rams, and hopefully Stafford does just enough to win and gets out of there without any more injuries.
Yeah, I'm taking the Rams as well. They didn't play their best last week and beat a Houston team that I think right now is a better team than Tennessee. I'm going to take the Rams pretty simply. Just I think they're better at all fronts of the game right now.
Are the Dolphins a better team than Tennessee?
No. Right now, I don't think so. Honestly, I'm trying to look at a team right now in the NFL that I would legitimately say I think the Dolphins would win. Cleveland would be in that consideration.
Giants?
The Giants would be in that consideration.
Browns?
Carolina, Cleveland, the Giants, and maybe it depends on how the Saints look this week. If they look more like we expected, maybe the Saints, because I still think they have a talent void. But if they look good against San Francisco, I'd say the Saints are better. But I'm looking at the full list of games. I don't see another team out there right now. I would think Miami has a legitimate chance about beating.
Shall we go to the late slate of games?
Yep. First game of the 3-game afternoon window. It's Carolina at Arizona. Arizona has a very soft schedule to start, as they started with the Saints last week. Now the Panthers. The Panthers are 6.5-point underdogs going to Arizona. For the Cardinals, you're going to play Kyler Murray. You're going to play James Conner. You're going to play Trey McBride. And you're going to play Marvin Harrison Jr. Not all of them will hit because Carolina is not a good defense. Eventually, if Harrison doesn't hit early and McBride doesn't hit early, they're probably going to end up on the short end of the stick unless Carolina's offense shows up. For Carolina, I think you can play Tet McMillan without too much of a concern, and Chuba Hubbard. I don't think you want to go into the depth of any Bryce Young or Xavier Legette quite yet, but they do have a couple options at the top then. I think Hubbard's a very good start as well because Arizona's defense is nothing special. Arizona, though, a 7-point favorite. Kyler Murray should be back to full health. Hopefully he's not vomiting and pooping from both ends at the same time on game day morning about 5 hours before kickoff like he was last week. But only time will tell. Borderlands 4, though, is dropping, and that could be a problem for Kyler Murray. I don't know if he's a big Borderlands fan, but I know with Call of Duty he is. So, Joel, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, Cardinals and Panthers. You got to pick the Cardinals, and hopefully they can use this week to get some of those kinks out from last week. Don't underestimate the Panthers and look beyond them, but I think they will be fine. And I'm picking the Cardinals, and hopefully Kyler Murray will show up for me in week 2 for fantasy.
For fantasy, he was good in week 1, but he could have been better if he was fully healthy. So this seems like a very good place to have Kyler Murray as your quarterback. I'm taking Arizona as well. When I'm listing a team that could possibly lose to Miami, I'm not picking you in any games either. And that's where I feel about Carolina. We'll see here when Miami and Carolina play in week number 5. That's going to be interesting. I think I'm going to root for blindness for that game. But that's just going to be an ugly game to watch. But we'll
And
get
we
to that when
go
we get there.
to
So
go to the
next up,
team that ripped out your heart.
we find out what the Colts are as they host the Broncos. The Broncos are 2.5-point road favorites, and they looked not great in week 1 against Tennessee. They won 20-12, but Bo Nix looked like first 4-game rookie year Bo Nix, where he was just wildly inconsistent, a little bit off, and maybe that Tennessee defense is just better than we expect. I think you are still looking, if you drafted Bo Nix, you're still going to play him. You're going to play Cortland Sutton, and I think if you're in a pinch, you can play both Dobbins and Harvey. Beyond that, it's kind of dart throw territory for the rest of the wide receivers. With Engram with the injury, I don't think you play a tight end there as well. For the Colts, though, Tyler Warren has to be in your starting lineup. He was an absolute beast in week number 1, the rookie. Michael Pittman had a good game. Josh Downs, I think, is a very deep league flex consideration if you are in a 14, 16-plus team league. They didn't need him last week, and obviously Jonathan Taylor's in the starting lineup. We'll see what Daniel Jones looks like. He looked very good. Is this another guy who gets away from New York and becomes a good player? Or is it we played Miami and now we play Denver and things are going to look different? Miami might be the worst defense in football. Denver is likely the best defense in football, with the one caveat that Green Bay might be the only team that's better than them. So we're going to find out about the Colts for sure. Colts 2.5-point home underdogs. Do they pull off this upset?
Yeah, you have were the Colts that good or the Dolphins that bad? You got the Colts and the Broncos riding on in for the showdown. And I think the Colts get exposed. I still think Danny Dimes has a decent enough day. But yeah, by far, the Broncos are by far the better of these two teams. And I think the Colts lose the showdown and the Broncos ride off into the victorious sunset.
Yeah, one set of ponies happier than the other, and I'm going to take Denver as well. Obviously, I'm not real high on the Dolphins right now, so pounding them the way they did is not going to earn me a lot of respect for the Colts yet. If they can keep this game close with Denver, I think I'll start believing a little bit more. And if they can win it outright, I'll definitely start believing a little bit more. But I'm going to take Denver. I think their defense is still too good. I think Bo Nix is going to look a lot better in week number 2.
So you're going to be more of a believer.
Yeah, I am a believer in a lot of ways. I have him in some fantasy leagues. I have him in some dynasty leagues. He's a good quarterback. He looked bad last week, but he will get better as the season goes on. Again, a lot of these teams with less preseason time, they don't play their starters enough, and they just come out a little bit slow. I think that was the case with Bo Nix and the Broncos offense last week, and it will get better as time goes on. Next up,
we go to Arrowhead Stadium.
Whether or not this ends up being the best game of the week, it is the marquee game of week number 2. It's the Super Bowl rematch between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Eagles.
Don't you mean the Kansas City Swifties?
Kansas City Swifties. The Eagles, though, 1.5-point road favorites over the Chiefs in Arrowhead. For the Eagles, you're going to be playing Saquon Barkley. You're going to be playing A.J. Brown, even though he was a complete disappearing act in week number 1. Devonta Smith is going to be in there. Dallas Goedert is out, so probably not going to look at tight end in this game too much for the Eagles. And obviously, Jalen Hurts at quarterback. He's just too good to not put on the field for the Eagles in your fantasy lineups. For the Chiefs, as Joel rejoins us.
Hey, you didn't even get to say, there goes Joel.
Yeah, I didn't have to this time. For the Chiefs, I think Pacheco's a really bad option, but there's going to be people that have to play him because they went 0 RB. And outside of that, he's probably a bench this week. Travis Kelce had a good result, but wasn't heavily involved. I think Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster should be pretty good options because
Hollywood
they don't have anything
Hollywood
else.
Again.
I mean, they both got a lot of targets last week. Once Worthy went out. We didn't see Kelce step up in the void either. He did get a long touchdown, but only 4 targets in the game. So those two are probably your best bets, with Kelce obviously being in your lineup if you drafted him. The Eagles absolutely smothered the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They were up 40-6, I believe, at one point. It ended up being 40-22. The Eagles look like one again. I think they're one of the top 4 teams that are going to win the Super Bowl odds wise. Chiefs are in the top 5 or 6, but they're 0-1. The Eagles are 1-0. They're a road favorite. If the Chiefs lose, they start 0-2, and it could be the start of the downfall of the Chiefs this season. But it's still the Chiefs. The Chiefs do some things when you don't expect them to, and they have that weird, quirky. How do they win that game? They didn't even play as good as the other team thing. So who do you got?
Yeah, I actually saw there was an article where somebody actually did a honest to goodness academic study showing that the refs do favor the Chiefs. Shocking. But as far as the Super Bowl rematch goes, it's just hard picking the Chiefs. I know they are the miracle makers. Mahomes is the how did he make that throw and touchdown? But you saw in Brazil, they had the right before the half all of a sudden, but then the Chargers absolutely dominated them the second half, and the Chiefs need wide receivers big time. Rashid Shaheed with his suspension, then Kelsey, of course, knocking out Worthy. That doesn't exactly help things. All the talk, of course, does he'll wind up going back to KC, even though Hill has his own problems now to potentially deal with. But yeah, until KC gets some of those arms back into that wide receiver room, it's going to be hard picking them to win outright because we remember even when they did have receivers last year, how close, like you said, some of those games were, and you're wondering how did they win that. I know it's Arrowhead, and I'm not going to pick the Eagles to win by however the bleep the much they want, but I'm going to pick the Eagles to win.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Eagles as well. I do want to make a mention that the Chiefs' next 4 games, they play the Giants, which should be a win. Then they play the Ravens in the late window in week 4. The only non-primetime game of the 4, by the way, in the next 4 weeks after week 3 through week 6. Week number 5, Monday Night Football against Jacksonville, and then Sunday Night Football against Detroit. So they've got a tough road coming up. I mean, Jacksonville could be sneaky. Baltimore, Detroit, I don't think anybody's sleeping on either of those teams being pretty solid as of now. I'm going to take Philadelphia as well, and if so, the Chiefs have to pull an upset in the next few weeks because you go 1-5, 2-4. That's still a very tough division. You've already lost to the Chargers. You're going to play Vegas. You're going to play Denver. It could get away from them surprisingly quickly. Of course, the Chiefs could reel it all in. They can make us look really stupid after we picked Philadelphia right now. But we're both on Philadelphia, and we're moving on to the Sunday night
You've
football
been
game.
waiting all day for Sunday night.
Yeah, I wish they would stop that stupid song. But that's just my opinion. I don't think we need a theme song for Sunday night football. It's just me. Anyways, the Minnesota Vikings are hosting the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are 4.5-point road underdogs in this one. The Vikings, they looked so bad for about 2.5 to 3 quarters.
How bad was it?
I was ready to say J.J. McCarthy is an absolute bust. He looked good in the first preseason game, but he's playing against backups. And then all of a sudden, he looked like Tom frickin' Brady in the fourth quarter, and he just dominated. So what we think about Minnesota, I don't even know yet.
And that's without Jordan Addison, who's still suspended.
Yeah, Jordan Addison still suspended, projected for 1.16 while suspended on Yahoo, by the way. Great job, Yahoo!
Yeah.
They're playing the Falcons, who apparently were looking into new kicker options after Younghoe Koo missed the game-tying kick against Tampa Bay last week.
You probably got some hate mail there. Youch.
A little bit. The Vikings, though, 1-0. The Falcons 0-1. For the Falcons, you're going to play Bijan Robinson. You're going to play Drake London. You probably need to play Kyle Pitts, who was very good in week 1. And then Mooney, we don't know what he's going to look like coming back from the injury, but he's at least in consideration if you are weak at the wide receiver position or your flex is just not a great option. I think Michael Penix is a sneaky, startable quarterback in this week. He was very good last week against Tampa Bay fantasy-wise, and I think he will be very good once again. For the Vikings, you're obviously going to play Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. Jalen Naylor is an absolute desperation play, and he's in one of my starting lineups in the Dynasty League because I have Worthy and I have Kittle, and life hurts right now.
Yay.
Yeah. I think Jordan Mason's the running back you want in this backfield, but him and Aaron Jones are likely playable at the very least if you needed to. Minnesota, 4.5-point favorite. I I think that's a bit much for a line for my taste. I will make my straight up pick in a minute, but I think Atlanta should be able to keep this game within at least a 3-point margin, if nothing else. But Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, here we go with the. I don't know if you call that this is the game of the week because, of course, it's a letdown after the last game of the week. Tree already put up the greatest game, and it's kind of nice to see Buffalo actually coming back. They've been on the other side, some of those videos in the past, but
This could definitely be the most entertaining game of the week. It's not going to be the headliner, but it could be the best competitive game of the week.
yeah, because the Falcons have a chance to win, but I can't go against the Vikings after that. You had the second, fourth quarter comeback literally in 48 hours. You just had one Sunday night football, then Monday night you're going, it's happening again. Yep, the Bears still suck. And JJ McCartney just got the power wing and just went to freaking town. It's just hard going against. I know the Falcons have a decent offense, and they probably have more offensive weapons per se than the Vikings, but I think the Vikings are the better team. And JJ McCartney, yeah, offensive player of the week. I mean, you're going, how did that happen?
Should
But
have been Josh Allen, but
yeah, you get
should have been.
crazier decisions have happened. But yeah, I've got to go here with the Vikings, not only because I think they're a better team, but I also know Falcons' loss helps the Bucks.
Yeah, actually, NFC it should have been Puka Nakua over McCarthy, but that's fine. I will take Atlanta to cover, but I am going to take Minnesota to win. Remember, we used to not consider charging as much as the Falcons going to Falcon when they blew leads. I kind of think this game's going to look a little bit like that Chicago Minnesota game last week, where Atlanta's going to come out early. They're going to look good, and Minnesota's just going to hang around and chip away and win late. I think it's going to be a 3-point win by Minnesota once again. It seems like under O'Connell, it seems like this is a team that wins those close games. They don't win pretty a lot of the times. I think McCarthy still needs to get in tune with Justin Jefferson, J.J. Hawkinson. I don't think it's going to look smooth at all times, but I think it's going to be good enough to get the win. I will say this game is the one I am least confident in picking right now just because Atlanta is a good enough team.
Yeah,
If their
Penix
defense
Jr.
steps
is
up,
definitely legit. No argument there.
I think Atlanta can win this game. I think this is the pick so far I've made that I feel the least confident in. Don't be surprised if Atlanta pulls it off, but I am also taking Minnesota as we move on to the doubleheader on Monday night. We talked about
Monday night. That
the first one starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
not
This is a
staggering.
great time to be on the West Coast because it's 4 and 7 instead of 7 and 10. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to Houston to play the Houston Texans. For the Bucks, Emeka Egbuka, 2 touchdowns in his debut.
Double E
including
doing
the
it
game
again.
winner. First game absolutely looks like the front runner for Rookie of the Year on the offensive side, at the very least. You're going to be playing him. You're going to be playing Mike Evans and Bucky Irving. You're likely going to be playing Baker Mayfield if you draft him in that kind of position. Chris Godwin, good news, coming back to practice along with Tristan Wirfs. Not ready to play, but coming back to practice. So not bad
Any
thing.
step back is a good step, and it's also good for that offensive line, which definitely need Wirfs big time.
Yeah, it looks like week 5 for probably both of them at this point. For Houston, even though Nico Collins was bad last week, you're going to play him. I do not think you want to play Nick Chubb or Dameon Pierce. The Bucks have been one of the best run defenses for several years. Nick Chubb was good last week against the Rams, but only got about 60 yards on 13 carries. I think the Bucks defense against the run is a little bit better. Probably not a good spot for them, but don't be surprised for like a Jalen Higgins or a Noel, or if Christian Kirk comes back, still not guaranteed that's going to happen. I think one of those guys can also have a good game. Dalton Schultz at tight end is an option as well. I don't think this is a good spot for Stroud if you can avoid it. The Bucks are 2.5-point road underdogs, which means if this was on a neutral site, it'd be pretty much a pick'em game. I know you're a Bucks fan, but the Bucks will not go 17-0, Joel.
Yeah.
Is this one of the losses, or is this another Tampa Bay win?
Oh yeah, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid where I've actually seen one or two people on social media going, Bucks are going to the Super Bowl. I'm going, okay, I'm a Bucks homer, I'm a Bucks supporter, but I'm not that delusional. I'm sorry. I know you can make the case here and there, but you're going to have so many things happen or not happen that the Bucks take that path. But as you said, normally when I first made the pick early in the week, I actually picked the Texans, but then I switched back to the Bucks because the reason that I initially picked the Texans, but then switched back to the Bucks was because of, as you know, Bucks don't exactly do too well in prime time football. You can remember quite a few times against the Saints that have not exactly gone their way. But the reason why I switched back and decided to take the Bucks this time was because of A, how horrible the Texans are right now, their current state. I think the Bucks can beat them. And two, it's prime time, but it's on the cusp of prime time. It's 7 p.m. Now, if it was a later game, I'd probably pick the Texans because that really throws off all the body clocks big time when your game starts at 10 flipping p.m. But I think the Bucks have a chance. I think they have a chance, and they can get the prime time monkey finally off their back. If they can, it's going to be a bit of a rough stretch. I'm picking the Bucks, and I think Double E shows up again with another miracle.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bucks as well. Yes, they haven't been the best in prime time, but it's typically been against teams like the Eagles, against the Chiefs, against teams that you really expect them to struggle against historically. They're not playing teams like the Texans who have no offensive line, an injury at the wide receiver position, and an injury in the backfield that's going to debilitate their offense. So I'm taking the Bucks to win outright. Obviously, they're going to cover. I'm a little worried about Houston falling behind this division with Jacksonville. If they can beat Cincinnati, they would be 2-0. I mean, the Colts could be 2-0 and they could be 0-2. It could be one of those things like you're looking at the Chiefs, like, I know this isn't a terrible team, but you're 2 games back already in your division through 2 weeks. It's going to be tough from there. But I think the Bucks are going to be good. I think Bucky Irving's going to come through big time in this week's game, and I could see either Mike Evans or Emeka Ibuka just being a dominator.
And I saw a disturbing stat about Baker Mayfield's got to watch some of those turnovers because he was close to Tua last week.
Yeah, he said not company you want to be in. All right, last game of the week, the 10 p.m. Monday Night Football game. The
Probably
Los
done
Angeles
like
Chargers.
1 or 1:30 p.m. in the morning. Oh boy.
Yeah, usually it's about 1:15. The Los Angeles Chargers. My voice still not in full season strength, as we're already an hour and 15 minutes in, so this has been a long one. Chargers 3.5 point favorites going into Las Vegas to play the Raiders. For the Raiders, the Ashton Jeanty did get a touchdown. Didn't look great week 1, but fantasy-wise didn't hurt you. He will be in your lineups once again. Jacoby Myers, he's good. He just needs to be in your lineup. He's not flashy. He's not someone you're going to be like, oh, I got Jacoby Myers. Yes, but he'll put up 13, 14 points for you, and you'll be happy at the end of the week. Keep an eye on that Brock Bowers injury. If he's healthy, he's got to be in your lineup. But being the last game of the week, if he's out, you want to get like his backup. Michael Mayer. You want to get him because there's not going to be any options after that. You might not know until, if he's questionable, he might not, or doubtful, you might not know until kickoff. And at that point, you're stuck with either Will Dissly, Tyler Conklin for the Chargers, or Michael Mayer for the Raiders. So again, keep that
questionable this week.
Which one?
Will Shipley.
Oh, Will Shipley is out, but he's the Eagles running back. Will Dissly, the tight end for the Chargers. Will Dissly, Big Montana. He is. There's just not going to be a lot of options. So keep an eye on that Brock Bowers situation. If he's healthy, you're going to play him. For the Chargers, O'Marion Hampton looks like he's going to be better. The Kansas City defense is good against the run. You should have a better opportunity this week against the Raiders. Quentin Johnson was one of the top 3 wide receivers last week. I don't want to say play Quentin Johnson, but he was picked up for a reason in a lot of fantasy leagues. If you have a hole in your flex or at wide receiver, you could do a lot worse than Quentin Johnson this week. Also, Keenan Allen should be in your lineup, as well as Ladd McConkey. It might be touchdown dependent for Quentin Johnson, but he was just too good to not mention last week. The Chargers beating the Chiefs week 1 and the Raiders in week 2 would be 2-0 in division and 2-0 to start, which is a great way to start the season for the Chargers. But the Raiders look pretty good. Over 300 yards passing for the Raiders in week 1 against a good Patriots defense. This is a good matchup, even though I think a lot of people would say the Chargers are a much better team and it's not going to be close. I think this is one where the Raiders, they got a really good shot at covering, but who do you got?
Yeah, as the Chargers absolutely stunned the Chiefs in Brazil. And I think this trend continues tonight as yeah, Raiders Z definitely stepped up big time in the second half, to absolutely shutting down the Patriots in week one. But this Chargers team is a totally different animal than were the Patriots, as we saw what they did to the Chiefs, and I think they do some of the same to the Raiders. They might have a little bit of hangover from the jet lag, going halfway across the world, then coming, and then they're starting at 10 o'clock p.m. in the middle, and the just way smack at the end of the night. But I definitely have to pick the Chargers as maybe you pick the Raiders to cover, but it's hard to pick them win outright.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers both to win and cover the spread, but I do think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be one of those where it might be a 7 point game, but it feels closer than that. The Chargers and Raiders, both West Coast teams, 7 p.m. for them. Not too late of a start time, but later than they're used to for the most part. And then the travel for the Chargers, I'm not worried about because every time they have to go west, they're traveling pretty much the same distance as if they went to Brazil. Maybe a little bit farther to Brazil, but not so drastic that I think it's to make a huge difference. So I'm going to take the Chargers to win. And we only had the one difference this week, which is not a big surprise. But the surprise is that Joel is taking New Orleans over San Francisco, and I'm taking San Francisco. That's the difference. And without further ado, let's go to Joel with his final thoughts.
Final thoughts times three, actually, with the first one. FanDuel Sports Network to sell NBA and NHL games starting at $6.99 fly-in. As plus, have you seen Sling selling day passes for college sports? You know, more than likely that's going to be for college football. And do you think this is a good trend or a bad trend? If so,
Bad.
why?
It's bad. I think we should just be able to pay for the package, or it should be included in what you're already paying for. I mean, most of us are paying for something, some form of television, whether it's streaming, cable, YouTube TV. So you have this NFL Sunday ticket. That's me. And I think when you pay for that kind of thing, you should be paying the premium that you already get these things. So to charge money per game or money per month to get certain things, don't love it, especially if it is $6.99 per game. It's like, no, that's a bad idea.
Final thought number two. How about this from this response from Adam Silver when asked about the high cost of streaming NBAs. Quote, there's a huge amount of our content that people can essentially consume for free. This is very much a highlight based sport. Unquote. So basically, you have the NBA commissioner saying, well, you know, if you can't afford NBA streaming, just watch the highlights.
I mean, I've seen that the NBA is going to have some stuff on NBC. I know they're promoting the heck out of the NBA All Star Game being next to the Super Bowl and the Olympics, like it's at all on the same level, which it's just not.
Mm-mm.
Olympics and Super Bowl are up here. NBA All Star Game. I can't. The camera only goes so far, so I'll say it's here, but it's really down by my freaking toes. I don't want to
How
move the
low can you
camera and
go?
talk.
Can you go down low?
I can take you to the flow. Anyways, yeah. I think that's a problem with your sport if it can be consumed in just the highlights and be just as good as watching the game. That's just me. I'm not a huge basketball fan. I will say I did watch a lot of NBA finals and enjoyed it, but it was more like two kind of good, scrappy teams going back and forth. Yeah, you had like Gilgis Alexander, who was a star, but I digress. But for the most part, I can't stand watching the NBA because night to night it's just not entertaining. And yeah, you got like 5, 6 highlights and you're good. You know what happened, you move on.
And my final thought before we go to your final thought, if you remember that whole crazy employee with the Jaguars who embezzled a whole bunch of money, well, apparently FanDuel has agreed to pay the Jaguars approximately $5 million to compensate for the nearly $20 million a former Jags employee stole from the team and deposited with FanDuel per ESPN. The NFL encouraged the Jaguars and FanDuel, a league partner, to reach a resolution, but did not actively participate in the talks. I don't know about you. I still think they got fleeced if all they got back was $5 million.
Yeah, it's a rough deal for the Jaguars, but $5 million back is better than zero.
True.
All
True.
right, so I've got a quick final thought, and then I've got my real final thought. I've seen rumors on the internet of Angel Reese, who is, if you don't know, she is the biggest turd in the WNBA. Nobody likes her. She thinks she's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and she can't make a layup. And I'm going to say this very vividly. I understand. I cannot beat her at basketball. I am an overweight white guy who is only 6'1". I understand that I cannot beat her at basketball. I'm not saying she is not talented in her own right. What I'm saying is she thinks she's too big for her britches. And by that, I mean she is doing the NFL tactic of, I'm going to remove the team from my social media, and I'm going to demand this, and I'm going to demand that. And she
ain't Micah Parsons.
And she thinks a few things that are crazy. One, she thinks the WNBA should have its own video game because it would outsell the NBA. No. She's got a tennis shoe. She's got a sneaker on the market that I think is with Reebok that she wanted a price point of $1,000 a pair.
Are you kidding me?
Reebok thought that it was worth about $40 a pair.
Lego just issued the new Star Wars Death Star that's $1,000 each.
Yeah, that's ridiculous too, but that's fine. And she also thinks she's going to be the first female to play in the NBA. Let me put it this way, Angel. You can barely touch the net. The worst NBA player can dunk over you without too much of a problem. You're not on their level. The athleticism difference is too big. Just sit down, know your place, shut up.
I have the perfect soundbite that would fit her whole. Remember The Rock? The Rock would say, I want to know what's your opinion. And then it doesn't matter what your opinion is.
Yeah. Also, with their sneaker deal, they negotiated to a 250-point price point, and they're losing millions on the deal because I think they've sold about 15 pairs. Anyways, my real final thought. Yeah. She's a little delusional, a little out of her mind. My real final thought, though, is that I'm wearing the USF hat once again. They are playing Miami in a couple days. And after the win against Florida, I did see some people really, really excited about the USF program, which is fair. It's probably the biggest win in their history. And it made me think back to my freshman year of college when I met Joel, or it was actually before I met Joel, but in my sophomore year, when USF had their breakout season and they got to number 2 in the country. Week 1 had a good win. Week 2 went on the road to a MIG-ranked SEC school in Auburn and won late on a field goal. A couple weeks later, they played their first ranked versus ranked game. They were playing the West Virginia Mountaineers, Pat McAfee's school at the time. They were the number 18 team in the country, playing West Virginia, the number 5 team in the country. And if those numbers sound familiar, that is because this weekend's game against Miami is the number 5 team in the country, and USF is the number 18 team in the country. And I remember saying when I saw the Florida win, someone said, this is a great time to be a Bulls fan. I said, it's reminding me a lot of 2007. And then I went back and reminded myself of 2007. So far, it's reminding me a lot more of 2007, that big SEC win against a ranked team, then going on against a team that nobody really gives you a shot at. And the rankings being exactly the same. I'm not saying I fully expect USF to lose this game. I think they'll be closer than people expect. I think it'll be one of those where Miami's going to get out with a win and then look back and be like, that was worse than we thought. That was scarier than we thought. But historically speaking, it's just reminding me of 2007. And if the South Florida Bulls win on Saturday, it seems like they're locked for the college football playoffs and possibly a really, really undefeated great season ahead of them. So big game for the Bulls, and just wanted to call out that we've seen this happen in a way before with the Bulls 18 years ago, and it looks like it could possibly be happening again. Anyways, long podcast tonight, and we're going to wrap it up quickly. I am Flying Ryan Gokers along with
Tampa Motor Mouth, Joel Verlin.
Back next week with the recap for these games, and on Tuesday, I believe, is the general plans can be Tuesday, Thursday, but we give ourselves some wiggle room on that. But with that, Mercifully for my voice, we go.